Good morning and welcome. We are so happy you're joining us. We're going to give it a couple minutes while everybody joins in on the webinar. Good morning. If you're just joining us, thanks for coming. We're going to get started in a few minutes. We're just letting all the participants enter the webinar. We're just going to give it 1 or 2 more minutes and then we'll get started. Okay, I think we'll get started and let people join us as they log on. I'm Newman, Director of Admission and Financial Access at King School. And thank you for joining us for this all-school overview, coffee and conversation. We're really excited to tell you about our program. I am joined by my colleagues today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and give a brief overview of their department. And then we'll go quickly to questions and answers because I know you have probably been reading my newsletters and checking out our website. So you probably have some pretty specific questions that we'd love to make sure we get answered today. So why don't we start it off with our head of school, Karen Eshu.
Just unmute. Good morning, everybody. I am Karen Eshu. I'm the head of school here at King, and this is my 3rd year as the head. I am excited to respond to your questions today about our program. Just a couple of things from my end as we get started. This is, I think, more than fair to say, an extraordinary school. And the reason why has to do with the fact that this is a school that is committed to the student experience. I know that every great independent school out there is really interested in the achievement of their students, and we certainly care about that deeply here at King. We want to make sure that we're providing the most dynamic and relevant education for our students possible so that they can be successful. And what we know here at King is that the ways that the students experience their education is really meaningful, and that in fact, when we set students up to have really fantastic relationships with their teachers and with other adults in this community, we actually know, and we know this not just from our own observations, but also from research, that our students actually learn more, they learn more deeply, and they're able to continue to cultivate their own curiosity so that they're always hungry for more. And it's interesting because when I think back to a few years ago, when I was first getting to know King and when I was actually applying for this job, I remember the very first thing that I saw written in the position statement for the head of school position was the sentence, "Students love King." And that actually spoke volumes to me at the time, because I realized that rather than, just giving some numbers or, talking about the history of the school, the first place that this school began in describing itself was in the experience of its students. And when I came to King and began to meet people, and you're going to meet some of my colleagues today who make this a reality every day, I found out that that's true. We've made all of our decisions as a school based on what we know is best for our students' experiences, which means that we know our students really well based on their age and stage. We know that this is a place where we have to respect their childhood and their adolescence and not try to press fast forward buttons on them, but instead really challenge them to think deeply and to keep their minds open to new ideas. We think that it's really important that our students learn how to be nimble thinkers and that they learn how to pivot when they need to.
Uh-oh, did we lose Karen for a second there?
Yes, we did.
Okay, well, let's switch over to our lower school head, Dr. Sandy Lazar Duff, who can tell us about the lower school program, and then we'll let Karen jump in later.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nina. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sandy Lazar Duff. I am the head of the lower school, and it is an absolute pleasure to have you join us. I am also a parent. My daughter is an 8th grader here at King, And as Karen said, one of the things that drew us to King is that student experience. Hearing Nina say students love King, and I am experiencing it firsthand, not just as an administrator, but also as a parent, because my daughter is thriving here at King. At the lower school, we are a school. We are pre-K to grade 5. We take the approach of play-based learning. It starts with our Reggio program, where we do respect students' choices. We honor their curiosity. We honor their natural instincts to just wonder, to create, to imagine. And what we do is that we use the environment, we create a space, we foster and we cultivate that curiosity. And from our Reggio-based program, we go into project-based learning, where students' choice continue to be honored. And at the same time, we balance that with, a robust academic program. Our teachers, they make it possible for our students to engage in everyday learning with independently as well as with their peers. And so you will find students working together. You'll find them being supported by an incredible faculty here at the lower school, whom I am very proud to work with. I am happy to answer your questions, and I'm looking forward to your conversation. Thank you.
Great. Let's move on to the middle school. Dr. Josh Deitch.
Hi, everybody. I am Josh Deitch. I am the head of the middle school here. And thanks, Nina, and thank you all. I'll echo, thank you all for coming. One of the things that I think you've heard already people say about how our students love King is the concept that I think when we look at King and we look at the way we serve our students, we really try and put our student experience at the center of all we do. And so as they progress from lower to middle to upper school, one of the things that we really think deeply about is helping our students move along the journey of one that I kind of consider the moving from student to scholar. And one of the things that means is that we start thinking about, for our students and the students who are with us, the ability to start taking in information, understanding information, and more than just accruing knowledge to gather knowledge and hold on to knowledge. It's about developing their skills and understandings of the world around them and understanding where they fit into the world around them. And so during a time in life in middle school, when our students are in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and they are going through more change socially, emotionally, cognitively, physically, than at any other time in their lives, except for when they're born to when they're 3 years old. We have developed a program where we really helped our students to develop and understand that their voice has value, their voice has meaning, and that they have an impact on those around them. And it's not just about developing their social and emotional understanding. It's by developing that social and emotional understanding, they actually understand themselves a lot better academically. And so throughout their time with us, our goal is to take what they've learned in the lower school and continue to build on it, but to do it in a way where they start to learn how to ask the right questions, how to find information, how to then, once they find information, evaluate whether that information is meaningful, and eventually communicate that information in an increasingly complex and sophisticated way that represents their own growing understanding of themselves and the world around them. I could talk about the middle school for a long, long time, but I want to make sure that we're giving a lot of time and for you all to ask the questions. And I'm going to stop talking and pass it on to my colleagues.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Marnie, you want to talk about the upper school?
Absolutely. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I know we have participants from who are interested in each of the divisions, lower, middle, and upper. And as you've heard from my colleagues, we are definitely a very connected pre-K 3 to 12 school. And I have the honor, this is my 14th year as head of upper school, the honor of working with our oldest learners, our young adults, our high school students whose orientation is to continue to understand themselves as learners as powerfully as possible, but also to end their journey up on that stage at graduation, confident and ready to move on to the best colleges and universities in the United States and beyond. So the upper school is an exciting place to be. We have a very clear goal set out for us in the upper school, and that is, as Josh said, when kids move from students to scholar, in the upper school, we are honing those scholarship skills. We are committed to giving our graduates a full set of tools in their toolkit so that they can really powerfully engage with any complex challenge that comes their way. For example, we have a rigorous liberal arts and sciences curriculum that we are very committed to. So we want our students to think like mathematicians. Math is a language. We want them to be able to speak math well. We want them to think like a scientist, to ask good questions like a historian, to be good historiographers. We want them to see the world through the eyes of a poet, a playwright, a musician. We want them to be able to think like an engineer and to be creative in the way they see connections between and among all of these wonderful disciplines. These disciplines are traditional, right? Mathematics, science, historiography, history, literature, world languages. We do have a traditional liberal arts and sciences curriculum here at King, but what makes it different is our commitment to student engagement in terms of their own passions and interests in these rich subjects that we believe are the best subjects to not only prepare kids for colleges, universities, and beyond, but to explore what for us are the essential questions of an excellent education. Who am I? Who are we? How do I know what's true? And that last question gets at another real priority that we have in the upper school, and that is an orientation towards research and inquiry skills. We're very strategically interested and committed as a school to making sure our students can not only see connections between and among the disciplines before they go to college and university, but can actually also understand how to access information at a very sophisticated level and to know when to apply it to particular problems. We see that as obviously something that's always been important to the liberal arts and sciences, but historically, given where we are as a human species, right, that is a very critical skill that we think we need to really hone in on, and that is something that you should know as folks looking at King, that we are particularly committed to, really teaching our kids to go deep into particular subject areas that are of interest to them. No two students in the upper school have the same schedule. We're incredibly proud of our wide range of electives, from philosophy to archaeology to genetics. We have advanced research programs in the sciences and the humanities. We have graduation distinctions in different areas like leadership and STEM and visual arts. And I can talk to you about all of this, obviously, during the Q&A. I'll give you more information. But my point is that if you got a really sharp set of tools in your toolkit, and you know how to think critically about the essential questions of what it means to be a human being, who am I, who are we together, from all the disciplinary perspectives, and you have opportunities to scratch the itch of your own interests and passions, you are much more likely to feel like you belong in a school community as a young adult and feel like you own your own education and can really be launched with confidence. Frankly, you're more likely to take risks when you feel known, heard, loved, and understood. And if we pay attention to your interests and help you engage with them, that is one way that we show our compassion and love for our students. So that was a big sermon there. So I'm happy to break it down for you as we move through the program. Thank you, Nina, for letting me take that broad gesture of summary of the upper school program.
Thank you, Marnie. Karen, did you want to add anything in before we open it up to Q&A, or did it all get covered?
I think it all got covered.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened there. All of a sudden I got kicked out and then invited right back in.
That happens.
I guess if we were in person, I would have just randomly walked out of the room and then rejoined you. I don't know.
Okay, so what we're going to do is open it up to Q&A. If you have not taken part in a webinar style Zoom before, there is a feature at the bottom of your screen that says Q&A, and you can type your question in there, and then I will direct it to the appropriate administrator, and maybe multiple administrators depending on the question. I will answer questions about the admission and application process at the end. So if you type in a question about that and I don't get to it right away, I am going to wait until the end and answer all of the questions. questions about the application and the admission process. So jumping in, this is actually a question that I think each division head could give a brief answer to, which is the primary model of teaching. The question asker is very well informed and says, I recall hearing about research-based and collaborative efforts, but is it more project-based, independent-based, direct instruction, etc.? And I think that might look a little bit different at each developmental stage. So Sandy, could you kick us off with what that looks like in the lower school?
So in the lower school, it's play-based. So starting in our Reggio approach program in pre-K and kindergarten, it starts with a provocation. We have no idea. The teachers don't know where it's going. It could start with a cup that's sitting on a table. It can start with a branch that's outside. Perhaps we had a delivery and the teachers emptied out the contents of the box and the box is laying around, and the kids, it sparks an interest. And so out of that, we develop the units. The teaching is based on the interests of the kids. Much of the school day is spent in terms of pre-K and kindergarten. It's play, it's learning through play. We believe that students are able to retain and grasp concept by touching, by playing with each other, by engaging with the environment. And from that Reggio-based, play-based emergent curriculum, we move our grade 1 through grade 5, it's project-based. And that project-based learning, it is based on research. It is grounded in research. Our teachers, they continue to engage in professional development throughout the school year, much more intensely over the summer. And so that project-based learning, again, it's thinking about those essential questions. The teachers are very careful not to tell the students what to do and how to engage in that research process in the project. However, they are carefully guided and supported. And so we really, as Josh mentioned, and you've heard Marnie also mentioned, it's really about, what it means to be an investigator, to be a scientist, to be a historian, to think about problems, to research and ask questions, and to be very thoughtful about the questions that are being asked. And we start that as early as our first grade classrooms, where the students do engage in projects, thinking about essential questions. And the projects are very different. They're different from classroom to classroom, and they may be different from year to year because the kids are not the same. And so that's important to us. We're not the school where if you come like this year, you may see something as you tour or engage in conversation with our teachers and students, and you're very excited. Do know that there's a chance that that project may or may not repeat itself next year, because it is student driven. It is about the student experience. And so although the skills that we aim to teach, that we aim to cover, the skills will remain the same, but the way we engage about the project and attaining those skills, that's going to be different. And we pride ourselves in specializing in that.
Thank you, Sandy. Before we move on to the middle school, along those lines, there were a couple questions about how we meet students where they are and challenge and support them, especially given that some of them have had their year cut short last year, or maybe they were remote learning this year. So I think it kind of ties to the same question. If you could just talk about how we sort of meet kids where they are and challenge and support them.
Sure. It's at the very beginning of the school year, so by the third week of school, all of the teachers, they administer 3 types of benchmark assessments so that we get a sense of where the students are. This way we know which direction to go. And so we administer a math assessment. We administer a comprehensive literacy assessment. That entails reading, writing, as well as word study. And so based on that information, then we know, okay, where they are and which students, because we do have some model scholars, and then we also have some scholars that, that will need to be enriched, that we need to continue to stretch. We use that information to inform our instruction, and we're also able to develop an individualized instructional plan for the students. And so based on that, we can create that individualized plan, we can create small group plans, and also our whole group class lessons. We repeat those benchmark assessments 3 times a year. And so at the beginning of the school year, again in January, and at the end of the school year before they transition to the next grade level. And in addition to those benchmark assessments, the teachers are also constantly observing and watching and learning kids and tweaking and adjusting their instruction, and also supporting students throughout the learning process. But the benchmark assessments are very valuable to help us develop those instructional plans.
Thank you. Josh,
you, Nina.
teaching models in the middle school.
Yeah, thank you. And I think what Sandy said, I'm going to just build off of, which is kind of what we do in the middle school. We build off of what happens in the lower school. But I think what I really want to hone in on is the concept of what Sandy identified as the delineation between kind of process and product in education. And I think when we really start to believe in, and we really talk a lot about in the middle school, is a recognition that we want our students to start thinking deeply about the process of learning and taking responsibility for the process of learning. And so there are a lot of different ways to help a student take over and start to take control of their learning, and recognize that it's not this passive thing where someone is telling me information and I'm just taking it in. Instead it requires a lot of myself to come forward to the table. And the way we do that in the middle school builds a lot on what Sandy was saying. So we really help our students to think about, how do I ask the right questions? How am I moving through certain curriculum and certain progressing my understanding? And we do so by not always necessarily kind of leaving things open-ended, but we have an opportunity for students to dive very deeply into different content areas and different understandings. And one of the things that we're going to focus a lot on in the middle school is the ability for our students to consistently develop transferable skills that are going to serve them both in their classes and outside of school in general, right? I think one of the things that the example I always give is that very often when I come to work, very rarely do I sit down and say, I'm going to do my email and now's my time where I'm going to do English, right? Instead, what I do is I sit down and I bring all the skills that I've learned throughout my time in education to bear throughout the day. I'm problem solving, I'm communicating, I'm writing, I'm reading, I'm listening, I'm sometimes doing math. All those things are ways that we engage each other and engage the work we do. And so in order to do that, we have to have an educational model that balances a lot of what the questioner asked about, direct instruction versus open-ended problem solving versus project-based learning. And so when you ask, like, what is our model? I would say there's no one specific model that we have in the middle school. One of the things that we've really worked hard to do is to, if you think about a general 45 to 60-minute class period, what we try and do is follow what we call the workshop model, which is you'll start a lesson, a teacher will start a lesson with a prompt, an overall open-ended question, but that'll be kind of group work where we're doing a mini lesson together. That lesson will look different in every class. In Spanish, they're going to be talking about the preterite. In math, they might be looking at last night's homework, which was focusing on, the Pythagorean theorem. Those things are going to look different in each class, but that'll be about 10 to 15 minutes of a mini lesson that's going to be questioning, answering, spending some time doing some writing, reading, communicating. Then we release the students to do some independent work or group work. What that looks like is going to look different in every class again. And sometimes it'll be a Socratic seminar. Sometimes it'll be an opportunity for us to work on a project that we've been working on for a few days. And then ultimately after that, That might transition 1 or 2 times. We might have some kind of stations. We might have things going on. Students will come back together for some closing activities so that they all kind of leave the class with the ability to have a shared understanding of what the class was aiming for, even though the individual understanding might look a little different from student to student, because that's how we learn. We learn differently, and we want to be able to show our understanding. And so, that's the way we approach things, with the ultimate goal being that we're going to scaffold to students having opportunities to do larger projects, larger investigations that take a little bit more time, help them manage their time. But one of the big pieces that we do in the middle school is we build in opportunities for students to do some deeper reflection on their own process. So at the end of a project, at the end of a class, at the end of a given learning module, students will be prompted to think about what worked for them, what didn't work for them, what could they do differently next time. Because one of the things we really believe in the middle school is the opportunity for everything that happens to be a learning experience, whether the outcome is exactly what we wanted or the outcome is not quite where we wanted it to be. It's not a failing if it didn't quite meet our expectations. Instead, it's an opportunity for us to learn and improve or do something differently the next time. And that holds true for how we do our academics. It also holds true for how we engage with each other socially and in a community, which is our goal is to consistently learn from our experiences and build our understanding of ourselves and build our understanding of the ways we learn, so that the next time we are presented with something, whether it's in English or social studies or whatever it might be, we're going to bring the same skills and the same processes to bear.
Thanks, Josh. Marnie?
Yeah, and I think from the upper school perspective, I resonate absolutely, as any good school should. Your upper school head, your middle school head, and your lower school head should all be resonating and using similar vocabulary to talk about how we learn and how we teach. But it's funny, when you read the question, Nina, my answer was yes. And as Josh was saying, I think that King is not a doctrinaire's place in terms of we only use one methodology. We're incredibly nerdy in the high school about learning theory, pedagogy, methodology, and we actually have a lot of conversations with faculty about what methods and approaches work best for particular types of content areas and end goals, right? So if you want a kid to be able to explain the physics behind, actually, let's use electricity as an example. If you want a kid to be able to actually explain to you what happens when you flip a switch and a light bulb turns on, you need them to understand a lot more than just the science and math behind it. You can teach kids to do the science and math, and actually MIT did a great study about this quite some time ago now, where they actually went around and asked electrical engineering students to explain how a light bulb worked, and the kids couldn't do it because they had never gotten past the theoretical to the application. Now, we may decide that's fine in certain cases, but at King, we definitely tend in the let's be able to explain it, let's be able to answer it, let's have application be a part of the end goal. So yes, direct instruction. Yes, problem and project-based learning. Yes, Socratic inquiry. Yes, Harkness discussions and seminar-based discussions. Yes, model UN experiences where you are literally modeling and reenacting, if you will, historical United Nations cases and situations, but also you are engaging in really, really active learning as if you are yourself the president of a country or a military leader. I don't know if any of you on this call, because I can't see you, I'm a very social person. It's so much easier for me to do this in a performing arts center where I can see your faces, but some of you were probably in Model United Nations, debate, mock trial, all of those kinds of learning opportunities. They're super, super powerful. In our upper school, we use simulations and a lot of those techniques that we associate with clubs in our classroom because they often are the best indicator to the teacher that the kids are learning, engaging in a deep process, and they can see the outcomes. So I just wanted to say that, even though the answer to that question is not one answer, it's yes, we use all of those methods. We prefer to move in the direction with our students of application. And that's where I'll stop, and we can go deeper there if we want.
Thank you. Karen, this is a question about the approach that King takes to teacher professional development, specifically around their development of research-based practices.
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, one of the reasons why research is such a priority for us is because, and it certainly was, at the top of my list when we were starting to work on the strategic plan, is because that is really what I saw faculty already doing. And interestingly, and I think you heard my colleagues just talk about this too, I actually observed research happening across the entire campus. A lot of times when we hear the word research, our brains automatically fast forward to the upper school, and there's tons of research happening there for sure. But as Sandy was describing and as Josh was describing, there's so many ways that students learn how to ask good questions, which is the foundation of excellent research. And so part of the way that this really kind of dovetails with our philosophy around professional growth and development for colleagues is that in order for teachers to be able to teach research well, they need to continue to learn about research themselves as well as possible. We are very, very proud to be a school that I think has probably, at least based on what we can tell, probably the most generous budget for professional development for our colleagues here at King than any other school in the area. And the reason why is because, and actually before I go on, I should probably say, we spend that budget every year because our colleagues just can't get enough of their own continued learning. Now, the reason why we decide to invest in this way is because every time we invest in our teachers, the students win. It's very simple math at the end of the day. And so as our teachers are getting out there and learning about some of the most kind of up-to-date methodology, I think that can include a lot of things that happen online, for example. Right now, obviously, digital libraries are the thing, and so learning for the teachers to be able to learn well enough themselves to teach students how to make the best use of online resources, that's PGD that they can do. They are, in terms of the subject matters, especially as we get into the middle and the upper school, and we really have subject area experts in our classrooms. There are very particular ways in which research methodologies are going to differ a little bit from discipline to discipline. And what that means is that we're not just doing this as kind of a wide swath, like, hey, we just do research here at King. When students, for example, in the upper school are learning how to do research through our Aspire program, which is for our students who are at the highest levels already of math and science achievement and who really want to delve deeply into research, they're going to be on the ground doing research with scientists, for example, who are actually doing this research for their livings. And so getting our students connected to that is one thing, but then students on the humanities side who might engage in our Tom Main Humanities Fellowship are going to be working alongside with social scientists and learning how they do research. And in all of these cases, whether it's more generalized when the students are younger or more specialized when the students are older, it's really the faculty that are taking students through this step by step, but then also back to Marty's point about application, connecting them with people who aren't just talking about research at a theoretical level, their jobs are research, and students actually learn how to figure out what that looks like on the ground. And so in addition to the PGD that I've been describing for faculty that they take advantage of, the other thing that they bring to the table, obviously, is the connections that they can make between students and people out in the outside world of school who are doing the work. But this has been a priority for King for a long time. Again, this is another thing that I'm very proud, or another reason why I'm so proud to be associated with this particular school. We've known for decades now that when we invest in our faculty, the students win every single time. And that's one of the reasons for our excellence.
Great, thanks, Karen. There are a few questions about how we help new students adjust to life at King. Josh, maybe as the middle school, you could talk about that experience, and then people can assume that we do developmentally appropriate same programs in the lower school and the upper school, but middle school will give us a good range of the multiple opportunities.
Yeah, my pleasure. So it's something we really think a lot about. It's one of the things that I think we want to make sure, and I think we do a good job about, is we want to make sure our students feel like they have a sense of belonging and ownership in this community. And one of the things that we do, and we started a program this year, which has been really successful, is over the course of the summer, we identified some student ambassadors who begin the process over the summer of reaching out to our new enrollees, our new members of our community, to start engaging in some social activities, whatever that might be. During this COVID year, it was a little unique in terms of it was mostly texting and emailing and things like that, which probably for teenagers, that's not that unique. And so, but it developed a sense of our students really building a sense of community and connection even before they stepped on campus officially for their first time engaging here. An example would be that we had a number of new members of our 8th grade class all created some a text thread that they were all on, and literally the first day they showed up together, which was an intentionally designed orientation day, and I'll talk more about that in a second, but they literally all showed up on the same day together and knew each other already. It wasn't like, I don't know who this person is. It was as if they had been engaged in a relationship or interactions for a while now, and they had maybe never even met each other face to face, but they had definitely engaged in some socialization and connecting, so that they were not left alone to find their way. They were all together already, and that was through some of these intentionally designed opportunities for them to connect. Then we have kind of intentional orientation days. So students come to campus, we get them set up with computers, we get them set up with, in a normal year, lockers and all their supplies and materials they might need. They walk through their schedule, because everything about a new school is new, and we want to make sure we take away as much anxiety as possible. We have some early days in the school year that are specially designed schedule days, so that they're not following their typical schedule, but they get a chance to meet all their teachers. They get a chance to experience all the spaces on campus, both shared between the upper and the lower school, and not shared, that are specific to the middle school. They go to all the places they need to go. They find the nurse. They know where the bathroom is. All that stuff's really important. And then in the middle school, and I know what they do this in the upper school as well, we also have 3 days set aside early on where our students go through very intentional community building activities. So in the past, our 8th grade has traveled to Washington, D.C. Our 6th grade has done things like ropes course, kind of low ropes coursey type things on campus, and then traveled to some places nearby that do some more high ropes work and stuff like that. So the students are working together on projects and activities where they are able to be in community and kind of learn to support each other. One of our real founding principles in the 7th grade is that around service. So the students begin a long-term process and long-term partnerships throughout the 7th grade, where they're going to different organizations and connecting with those organizations that are outside our community. Each of these are designed, again, to build community within our community, so that they have these interactions. And then the last thing we do is that we have a really thoughtful advisory program where our students are connected to an adult advisor, and in about groups of 9 to 12, depending on the size of the grade and the number of advisors, they will then spend time as a community within a community where, again, there's a real intentional programmatic, there's been training for our teachers, there's a programmatic approach to making sure our students are developing this sense of shared purpose, shared community, and a willingness to share about themselves, so that they can consistently find connection and community among each other. So that's all kind of done within the first few weeks of the school year. And then I would say, one of the things we hear over and over again is how it feels like these new students who have come into our program, it's very hard to tell the difference after a few weeks between our new students and the students who have been with us since kindergarten or pre-K.
Thanks, Josh. Marnie, could you talk a little bit about office hours, extra help, study hall, those kinds of resources outside of the actual classroom time for students in the upper school?
Absolutely. And this is not just true of the upper school. This would be applicable to the middle school as well. We develop a culture of connection between student and teacher immediately. We want our students to be able to see their teachers not only as classroom resources during a designated time frame called a class, but we also want them to see their teachers as resources at all times. So in the upper school, where there's more flexibility, where kids have free periods, kids may have different numbers of courses in a semester than another group of students, they really start owning their own time. And that time then is filled with opportunities to connect with teachers. So we have help centers, we have teachers with office hours, we have teachers who are literally sitting, there's a glass wall that I'm pointing at right now, are sitting outside, outside my office, socially distanced, talking to two students. I know that teacher is probably doing a casual version of what we might all call extra help, right? That teacher is taking the opportunity to engage those particular students. So aside from designated math help centers that meet every single hour, we also have strategies classes that some kids formally enroll in, and a formal study hall program for 9th graders and first semester 10th graders. The other students then use the ongoing office hours mechanism and their teachers as resources, mechanisms during their free periods. We do teach self-advocacy here. Our advisor program is very helpful each morning and saying to students, like, one of your goals for the week was to meet with Mr. Galanopoulos about your philosophy paper, or to see Dr. Kiznishenko about your math work. When are you going to make those appointments? So again, it's a part of our culture to have extra help be just a normal thing, a part of both the formal procedures and processes of the school, but also a part of their free periods and their informal sort of mindset that they have when they're walking through the hallways. By the way, the seniors here do have open campus, not during COVID right now, but in a normal year. And so we do put a big emphasis on kids learning, as they will need to do in college as they get older, to make their appointments with their teachers, to not miss those appointments, and to really start developing as their prefrontal lobes are more fully developed, not fully developed, but to really engage in those executive functioning skills and use all the extra help mechanisms that we have available.
Great. We're almost out of time with our panelists, but there are two questions here that I think I could weave together and have each of you give a quick answer to. And then I'll finish up the rest of the questions when I go through the application process with our guests. But there's a question about keeping a good balance between supporting students and keeping learning fun and interesting, especially as they go through as the academic work gets harder. And then a second question looking for examples of how students encourage and celebrate one another in their different academic talents, challenges, and pursuits. And I almost think that second question would have been our answer to the first question.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm wondering if each of you could just give a quick example of how we see our students really rally around each other, and how that continues to engage and inspire our students in a way that we maybe don't see at other schools. Sandy, am I putting you on the spot to have you kick us off?
Not at all. I love this question, because that's the life of lower school, watching kids rooting for each other, giving each other high five, because, for us, the social emotional learning, which is the break, it's really a cornerstone of the lower school experience. And although we are intentional about supporting students through our Balance Works course that the students engage in with Dr. Pomerantz, but every morning, the students start their day in community with each other. They, during that time, they greet each other, they share information. And that information, it could be how they're feeling. And they are very transparent about that, whether they're having a good day, a not so good day. And they're giving each other suggestions and advice on how to feel better, or if they're struggling with a math concept or a reading word, they're giving each other advice and suggestions. And so you really get to see how they support each other. One of my favorite parts of the day is being outside during recess, and you get to see that level of camaraderie as well. students rooting each other on, if they're playing four square soccer, or if they're doing the Russian twist, which is, very difficult exercise regiment to do, but you see them, you watch them, and the level of sportsmanship that they have, what they exude is, are King's virtues, which we really haven't had a chance to mention to you, but I get to see all of that. It comes through the way that they interact, the way they treat each other, the level of kindness, the respect that they show to each other, and in terms of the way that they persevere when something is not so easy, when they get frustrated, whether it's doing PE or if it's in the classroom. Whatever it is, you see all of our virtues, but at the same time, you see them supporting each other. But it doesn't come, just like that, right? The teachers are there to support them. Dr. Pomerantz, in the course of balance work, she's very intentional about focusing on time management, executive functioning skills, helping students to regulate their emotions, and to really help them learn how to be an upstander, not a bystander, and what it means to be a good friend, what it means to be a kind friend, and to make responsible choices, and to really be empathetic to your peers. I hope that answered your question, Nina. So I'll
Perfect.
turn it over to Josh.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo a lot of what Sandy said. I don't need to rehash everything. I think one of the things that makes this place what it is that we talk about community a lot, but we also, when we make it clear to the students, we make it clear to each other that when we talk about community, community is not something that just happens, right? We don't just drop it from the sky like a weather event. It's something that happens as a result of our daily interactions, our daily support of each other, our daily love and care for one another, and that the students understand that they're the ones who make this stuff up, and they're the ones who comprise that type of community. And when you think about examples, I've seen so many times and so many occasions where you announce our students engaged in every year in the AMC8 National Math Competition, for example, and we want to celebrate their academic successes. So when we get the results of those competitions, and it is a competition, so you have winners and you have folks who do well, and we celebrate them, they stand up, and you don't see a single student say, "Oh, not that guy again," or "not that person again." You see just happiness that these students are shining in the way they're shining. We do the National Geography Bee for the middle school, and last year I watched students who were up on stage, giving their all, taking a shot, persevering. That's one of our core values and core virtues. And when they got it wrong and they didn't quite make it where they wanted to go, round of applause, high fives, etc. And when the student who was going to then go on to to represent us across the state won that competition, again, high fives, cheering, etc. It's a place that recognizes that we all bring something unique to the table, and we are better because everyone's bringing their own unique experience to that table, and we want to celebrate that unique experience and not assume that our success comes as at the sacrifice of someone else.
That was beautiful, Josh. That last thing you said is so important at the upper school level, right? Where we are of the largest division of the three, and we have students who have strengths all over the place. Some at the championship levels, some athletes who are being recruited in 10th grade. That's why we have an NCAA specialist in our college counseling office. And kids who are violinists and oboists, and they rock at the debate team. And some kids who just don't know what they're interested in because they're interested in everything. And this sense that each of us is who we are, and being at a school that says, I'm going to help you get to know who you are. I'm going to notice who you are. I'm going to help you take risks if you're a shy person or you're not as confident in a particular area. We're going to give you the gift of a growth mindset rather than a zero-sum game, right? The growth mindset says to kids, this is who I am. This is where I'm at. I'm not here yet, right? But these are some ways that I might get there. And I find that kids, especially some of our perfectionist, highly ambitious kids, super motivated kids, a growth mindset is really important for them too. And recognizing that what King values is celebrating, as Josh says, everyone's gifts and everyone's uniqueness. Doesn't mean you don't have winners of things, right? We have competitions in the upper school as well. We want our kids to rub shoulders with other students in top programs and enter competitions and science fairs and be in that space. And we want them to recognize that they're a part of a community where everyone has gifts and those gifts need to be developed. And we're all at different growth points in developing who we are as people. That creates the atmospheric condition in which kids can achieve at the highest levels. Super cutthroat atmospheric conditions don't allow for kids to achieve at the highest academic levels, ironically, right? They're far less likely to take risks. They're far less likely to cure cancer. It's the kids who are tinkering and curious and are really encouraged to keep growing and pushing themselves and to celebrate each other's proclivities. Those are the atmospheric conditions in which excellence can really live.
Thanks, Marnie. Karen, did you want to add anything before we sign off?
No, I think I would just say that I think that a lot of times it can be very, very easy, certainly, to mistake volume of work for rigor of work. It can be very easy to mistake a nice community for an inclusive community. I think that it can be really tempting to believe that kids are what they do and not who they are. And the thing is that I think for us at King, I think what you're hearing from my colleagues is that, first of all, we know that really healthy cultures get made. They don't just happen, they get made. We also know that that students are works in progress. Every single one of our students is a group project, for sure. And that group that is doing the project together includes the student, for sure. But it also includes the family and all of us at school. We are a school that believes very deeply in partnership, because everything that you heard my colleagues describe takes partnership. And what we know is that when we take that seriously, when we take our responsibility as adults to be in relationship with one another in order to benefit the students, again, goes back to what I was saying before too, this is when students win. And because we take those tenets so seriously, that's why and I'm sorry that you can't actually be here on campus with us today to feel what I'm describing, but that's why when people come to our school, it clicks. You feel that we are different precisely because we keep these tenets in front of us all the time. Every decision that we make is based on what's best for students, including, and in some ways, especially during these weird COVID times, but we have to. We're compelled by that because they're worth it, and they need us to prioritize their needs in ways that that will help them become the best versions of themselves as children, as adolescents, and then as adults who just cannot wait to get out of here and change the world for the better. Really, for real. So I'll end with that. Thanks.
Perfect. I'm going to let our panelists go. I'm going to answer the couple remaining questions and go through the application process for our guests. But thank you, Marnie, Sandy, Josh, and Karen for joining us today. We'll direct people your way if they have other questions for you.
Great.
Absolutely.
Thank you very
Have a good
much.
day, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
With us today.
Well.
Great. So there was just one question about the college admission process and also sort of how we help our upper school students plan out what coursework they'll do. And I wanted to just answer that. We do have a 4-year developmental college admission process where students are assigned college counselors at the end of their 9th grade year for that very reason, to help them pick their courses, to help them start to suss out what their passions are and how they might be able to gain more experience in those areas. If you have some time to go to our Coffee and Conversation page and watch the Coffee and Conversation on the topic of college counseling, it was outstanding. Our college counselors were on and it was really informative. And I think even if you have younger kids who aren't thinking about college counseling quite yet. I also thought it was just a really good reflection of the kinds of people who work at King School and why they've joined this community. So I would definitely recommend that. In terms of the application process, hopefully you all know that the round one applications are due on December 14th. We do understand that some people will have problems getting some of their materials in, either because they're waiting on a teacher recommendation, they couldn't schedule the testing, or maybe you're trying to schedule one of our upper school interviews and we need to schedule you for January. That is fine as long as we know that. So just communicate with us. If the interview is scheduled and the testing scheduled and you've requested those forms, that is perfectly fine. For those of you who are not going to make the December 14th deadline, if you're starting the process right now, you very likely could still get a decision in round one because those decisions go out in the middle of February. So depending on how quickly we can bring you up to speed, we very likely could be able to have those applications read by the admission committee in late January, early February, and get that decision out to you. So the fact that you are already at this point in the process means that even if you won't hit the December 14th deadline, we might be able to catch you up. We as an admission team really love working with families one-on-one. So if you do have questions for us, please feel free to reach out. Even though we are virtual, we are talking on the phone, we are answering emails, we are Zooming up a storm, and we would love that opportunity to get to know your family and help walk you through the process. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you would like to take a look at any of these other coffee and conversations, they are on our website and they're really interesting to check out. We have a few coming up in January that are a little bit more subject specific in terms of STEM and humanities and athletics. So those might be something for you to check out down the road. And if you were not able to attend our open house, we also have some videos and materials up on our website from the open house that I think might be helpful as you try to get to know our school virtually. Thank you again for joining us today, and I look forward to getting to know your family.